Hello, everyone. Welcome back from the weekend and welcome to your daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. Coming to you from our beautiful studio at Techtown in Detroit, Michigan. I am Jer Stays, and across the table from me is, as he is to start the week, Mr. Fletcher Sharp. It is so good to see you, man.
Yeah, of course. The heat's finally broken a little bit, so I can go places and not feel like I'm swimming in my own skin. So that's a nice feeling.
Have you been seeing that meme that's been going around? Like, you remember Super Mario Brothers 3, right? And the sun that, like, chases you and tries to kill you. That's what I feel like it was all week.
I honestly felt like one of those aliens from, like, the first alien from Men in Black, the guy who kept putting sugar in his water and he's like, more. But, like, how his skin just kept not sitting. Like, how I felt for, like, the past 8 days was just I sit somewhere and, like, I'm just too wet in my own skin. If I could just take it off and hang it up somewhere for a minute. But also, like, I know why you can't, because bodies aren't built like that.
We're going to have a bunch of stories to talk about. We've got some serious stuff. We've got some vibes we want to share from a game we went to. And we're going to talk a little bit about dogs and pets and fireworks, because 'tis the season. Tonight is the Ford fireworks, and it's going to bring a lot of people together. But also, we got to think about our four-legged friends. And as we both love them, Fletcher, we're going to talk about them in a little bit. Before we get started, I wanted to tell you that our new Patreon-only Discord is open. This is for supporters only. And you just got to join us, patreon.com/Daily Detroit. Already a lively community. People, chiming in, having questions, whatever. It's absolutely great. Also, a couple of requests I've gotten, Fletcher Sharp, and maybe I should share this. A couple of people are like, hey, can I do Cash App? Well, we don't normally do that, but we will make an exception here and there. If you do more than $12, which is the minimum $1 a month Patreon to get us in there, we'll also add you to the Discord if you want. So send me a note with that. Go to my cash tag is the $JER313. So $JER313. If that's the only way you can do things, we'll make it work, and appreciate your support. We had a few requests for that. So, I thought I'd share that.
Or, maybe leave a bundle of cash under a specific park bench and just at a specific time, and we'll just come pick it up.
You should tell us that specific time, though.
I mean, yeah, and like the bench, too, because otherwise it's just your money you're letting go away, which if you can do that, then, like, by all means, every park bench. But, like, I feel like most people can't just leave X amount of money and be like, I hope they get it type of thing.
All right, let's talk about some stories. First up, a little serious. A couple of things I wanted to mention. An Oakland County sheriff's deputy was shot in Detroit over the weekend in what is being described as an ambush. He was in plain clothes and following a stolen vehicle in Detroit. This happened over on the east side. The vehicle had been stolen earlier in the day from Red Oaks Water Park in Oakland County. It's a really sad thing. If you're going to steal vehicles or do things, you're going to get followed. This guy was actually tracked by a helicopter, and then the plainclothes came in behind him. And it's something that it's going to cause a reaction with a lot of people.
Yeah, Oakland County Sheriff Deputy Bradley Reckling, unfortunately, following a stolen car. The car randomly stopped, and then people jumped out and fired shots at him. Unfortunately, he was struck in the chest and the head. He was rushed to a hospital and unfortunately did not make it. Leaves behind 3 children and a wife who's expecting a fourth. So really tragic thing. The police say that they have suspects in custody, which, again, if they're following you with a helicopter and they flooded the area around Shaner and Park Grove, like, you expect that they probably have someone soon, especially if someone raises at an officer. And yet, to Jared's point, like, if you are going to do something like this, more often than not, like, realize someone is watching you more often than not. Like, if you are going to steal a car or do something else to this nature, as you're doing it, there's probably someone saying, okay, like go blue team, like, follow.
Well, and there are cameras all over the city of Detroit
that
will track you if you steal a vehicle or other things. And one could have their debates about whether or not people like that or not. But at the end of the day, and this is a little tease of the interview that we're going to be running tomorrow with Sarah Alvarez of Outlier, the number one concern of city residents, and this is residents, is safety and crime. And I think that you're going to see more of this, not less of this, as far as kind of a clampdown. We'll talk about a little bit more in a second.
I mean, it's kind of like those green light phones that people talk about where it's like, there's a green light here. You can come use this for whatever. And I know, like, when I heard about that, I'm like, that's great. If someone's in trouble, someone needs to make a contact someone, they have a place to go to, like, make sure they can make a phone call. But I also, a few neighbors of mine were like, I hate this. It feels more like someone's watching and doing something. And I'm like, I understand how that could be frustrating and like how it can make you feel uncomfortable. But there are people who need help who just sometimes can't get it. And like, we should at least allow them to do something to where they can get the help needed if there's no one around. And I know there's certain areas of the city where like there's heavy police presence. I also know there's certain areas of the city where like you get in an accident and like it might be 3-4 hours before they get there. So like if there's something there where you can call someone for help and help expedite that process, like I'm all for that.
Part of it too is the eyes on the street. Some neighborhoods, because there's more people in them, are going to have more eyes that can see what's happening. And that's one of the changes that we're seeing as people are moving into areas of the city. And I know that it can feel uncomfortable. And that's something that we're kind of wrestling with that idea of like, and we talked a little bit about it in the Juneteenth episode of like, what is one person's standard versus another? But when it comes to like stealing vehicles, violence, shootings, like that's a bright line in my mind.
Like if you like we mentioned in the Juneteenth episode, you have like the neighborhood, like drag race, whatever type of thing where like people are doing donuts and such. Probably a little annoying, probably a little noisy, but like if everyone in the community is in on it and you're the one person out, like, come on. But like stealing cars and like breaking in wind, that's not a neighborhood fun thing. Like that's a thing that like you really should not do. And if you see it happening, notify someone who can do something about it.
Well, you know, this gets into another thing because the city of Detroit is also cracking down on block parties. Or I should say unauthorized block parties that didn't pull a permit. There have already been a number of car shows like over on Gratiot and other places where people get together. And it is just part of the culture of Detroit for people to congregate, but without permits, without all that other stuff, a lot of things sometimes get out of hand. And there is kind of this almost tension within the city because there was a post on an Instagram account where they were saying about cracking down on these parties, and a lot of people were just in the comments, in their feelings on it. But then also I look at the data and I talk to residents, crime, people not having shootings, making sure that neighborhoods like are family friendly. Like that's a pretty high priority for a lot of Detroiters. And I get that it's often framed as like new versus old, but I'll be honest with you. Like I used to live in University District, man. Like, it's also old versus old. Like there's a lot of Detroit old heads that are just not into that vibe whatsoever.
I mean, yeah, I hate to name drop a park specifically, but like it's a frequent offender of this. We used to play softball at Maharis Gentry, and like I'm all for like not just where we played, but there was also a really competitive league that played there, and people would hold picnics and such. And like occasionally, like you'd look over and see some people like jaw back and forth or whatever, and like a few of my teammates who are not from the city would be like, oh, something's about to happen. I'm like, that's just good. Like, they're fine. Like, the game's going to end. They're going to shake hands. Had it happen a few times with us. But then you'd also look over and it's like there's a barbecue and people are, having fun, getting a little bit of a tussle on. You're like, yeah, sure. And then 5 minutes later, you hear what sounds like someone dropping a bunch of pop rocks on the ground over, and you're like, oh, okay, everyone get down. And it's like, yeah, like I understand exactly why, like you some of it is not, every single time you see someone come face to face, it's not going to be something bad. But also, like, if it's going to continue to be a thing where, like, guns get drawn or, like, a knife is pulled or, like, continual fists, it's like, we have to do something. Because, like, this can't keep happening to where we know. If you know somewhere is, like, a drifting spot or somewhere is, like, where there's an underground club or somewhere is, like, a speakeasy type thing, sure. Like, they're not, is it great? No, but you understand this area, it's fine. But if you know somewhere's like a frequent, like if you show up here, you're probably going to get stabbed or shot. Like you have to stop that. Like that's not something you can just let go, because that can spill out into other things and cause other problems other places.
It's kind of one of those things where like fools ruin it for everybody else.
Yeah, no, it's very stupid people sometimes ruin things for everyone, and every society has them. So if you keep them in check the best way you can, I think we can all have a good time this summer.
Let's talk something close to our hearts. The Ford fireworks are tonight. You can check them out on Channel 4, or if you're going down, I haven't gone down in years, so I am making avail of it. I am forcing myself to be done with work at 5. I'm usually done much later, and going to go down there because I think it's just going to be a fun experience. But it is not such a fun experience. Not as somewhat to the Ford fireworks, but there's fireworks all over this region. They're not always the greatest experience for our pets, our birds, our stuff like that. So we should talk about that a little bit because I know that you're somebody who loves the animals.
Yeah, and I love them from my heart, but also some know I'm also paid to love them. So I've done my best over the past few years to study techniques and how to make sure your pets are fine. If you have a very highly reactive dog, shouts out to Bernard and St. Clair Shores, who I love, but Bernard hears a firework and he's squirreling around. If you have a dog like that, if you can buy, I think it's called a thunder sheet, but typically I have one for my dog who's not reactive over fireworks, but reactive about a few other things. It just kind of slips right over your kennel if you have one, and you just roll it down, and it dampens the sound so that they can hang out somewhere and feel safe. If you don't have one of those, I just recommend keeping your dog away from windows as much as you can. Definitely if they need to go potty, like maybe let them outside, but as soon as they are done, rush them back inside the house because you don't want your dog to feel overwhelmed, because sometimes when a dog feels overwhelmed, they get a little angry and a little crazy, and we never want that for our pets.
When I take Gabby out and it's a situation that anything's a little loud and I have to take her out, I actually put her on the leash even in the yard so that she doesn't bolt, because that's just a stressful thing. Even if they don't get out of the yard, hitting the fence really hard, like it's this understanding that their senses are so much more sensitive than ours.
Yeah.
And so it's all magnified to them, and they don't know what's going on. Their brain's the size of a lemon.
Yeah. If you also, if your pet's small, for sure, like if you have one of the small lap dogs and they hop into your lap, like I would recommend just petting them on their sides, giving them a little bit of a soft hug to let them know things are okay. You got a bigger dog, I maybe don't recommend doing that because as you mentioned, their senses are heightened. So maybe when they're hearing the big bangs, trying to hold them down is probably not the best thing. They will let you know how much they do not like that.
Have you ever play wrestled with a 100-pound dog? I have.
I've play wrestled with a 150-pound dog, and I found myself down a flight of stairs. So it seems basic, but I know a lot of people just don't know. But like if you have a bigger dog who's like, hey, I'm freaking out, maybe rub its sides, maybe make sure it's okay. If you can afford to get some rescue remedy, which is a little bit of a calmant for your dog, I recommend you do that. Just give it 2 drops, and typically it helps calm your dog down as something is going on, just before it.
And obviously check with your vet on anything that you're going to give them, but that's just your experience.
Right. But also, definitely check with your vet, but I can assure you I would not recommend something that I have not run by multiple vets, but every dog is different, obviously. So do that, but if they okay it, I would recommend getting rescue remedy if it works for your dog. Some dogs are a little bit more high strung, typically something like a German Shorthair Pointer. Those dogs are like, that's not going to have any effect on them. So for those, I recommend you don't have to necessarily go into your basement or something, but just get them away from windows. And if they hear the noises and they come up to you, just rub on them and assure them that they are okay. If you need to, maybe give them a little bit of a treat, give them a treat, but just make sure that they feel as calm as possible and away from anything that could amplify the big booms outside.
Now, sometimes I will turn fans on in the rooms they're in to kind of help drown it out a little bit. I also will sometimes do bird sounds on my Alexa.
That's all fine too. There's a YouTube video that you can, it's like rain and piano sounds. If you can Google it, it's 24-hour video. So like in theory, you could leave it on all day to help your dog calm down. But it's something that I do definitely when I have dogs that are a bit reactive and I'm leaving or leaving for a little bit or leaving for the night and I'm coming back if I'm not staying there. I recommend looking at videos like that on there, but anything like bird sounds, a little virtual walk, fans, anything that can help drown out the noises. That's why I typically recommend, if you have a basement, going down there, because 1, there are no windows, and 2, typically it's further away from where the big booming sounds outside are.
Ground makes a really nice insulator for sound.
For sure. So yeah, if your dog's able to go in the basement, I recommend doing that. If not, then just get them away from windows the best way you can. If they need to be bribed again with a treat, definitely do that. Just make sure that they feel loved in their time of crisis, and you will do smoothly.
I will make an admission that I would not normally make publicly, but often if I need to leave the dog alone for a while, I will put on a YouTube channel that's just like a bird feeder or like a virtual walk or something that's like 8 hours long. And I tell you, it changes everything for her because she actually can pay attention and like sees it. And, I know that that's maybe overdoing it a little bit, but it seems to like work for her.
I mean, you can't really overdo it with pets unless it's like you're buying them their own VR. Then it's like, all right, that's maybe a bit much.
Does that even work for them? I've got to ask.
I mean, they could probably develop VR for pets. I mean, it's 2024. Like,
anything's possible.
We're trying to monetize pictures with NFTs for a while. Like, I feel like you can do anything at this point on the internet.
Before we go, I want to share some immaculate vibes, Fletcher, because look, I know that some people like are really into our Detroit City coverage. Some aren't. But in general, some of the vibes this weekend on Saturday were great. Wow. Keyworth was a whole nother energy, and I want to talk about it, bringing in people from around the country for this game for Pumas.
Yeah, no, I mean, as I mentioned before, in a bit of a preview about it, like, people not just in this country but around the world care about Pumas, UNM, and like they
showed out.
Yeah, they're one of like the top 4 teams in all of Mexico. And yeah, you looked at the opposing supporters section, which typically another team show up is kind of like here, hit or miss. But it was full. They had flags from Houston. They had flags from Florida, from Chicago, from all around the rest of the country. New York. And like in unison, their fans were chanting all 90 plus minutes. They lost 1-0, and like while the fans like kind of got quiet for like maybe 5 seconds, they all resumed cheering right after that. And I was like, that if you could bottle that and put it somewhere like that, that's legit. Wow, you typically don't see opponents come here and do stuff like that. The game had a lot of energy as well. Got chippy to the point to where the ref had to calm some stuff down, but just the overall vibe of that game was something that I had not felt since the last international friendly that I went to, in all honesty.
That was before the pandemic.
Yeah. It was also another Mexican team. Such a great energy they had that weekend. And hopefully they can keep that going forward.
Okay. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but just a thought. There's been a lot of question. If you don't follow soccer, you might not know this, but there's been kind of some questions starting to be raised about the Open Cup. This is a tournament that has teams, which you and I both enjoy very much, that there's these teams from all these different divisions that play each other. Well, the Major League Soccer has not wanted to be part of this as much lately. And the thing is that if we're honest, outside of like the Columbus Crew game, Open Cup matches do not draw anything. Like this was more than 7,000 people for Pumas. And I can't help but think from like a monetary point of view and from a vibe point of view, like I'd honestly rather have 3 or 4 of these international friendlies in the Open Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Cup fan. I guess you could even call me a Cup head to a degree. Like I love the US Open Cup with like, it's one of the coolest events. It's like the FA Cup in England or a Copa del Rey in Spain, and just it takes all the clubs, all the professional clubs, some of the amateur clubs, and puts them in one big tournament and lets them play. And I think every sport should have something like that for sure. But like you said, save for the Columbus Crew game. After they beat the Columbus Crew, they played the following year. They played against Minnesota United, and like another MLS team, and nowhere near as many fans were there for that game as they were for the Crew. And like that to me was jarring just to see that. I mean, 4,000 people for a game is a lot, but when you're like, we're bringing an MLS team and people are like, yeah, so what? It's kind of crazy. But when you look back to the Pumas game and it was 7,000, which only 3,000 more, but for Keyworth, that's full to capacity. And it wasn't just, it was 7,000, but it was 7,000 and they were loud the entire time.
Like they cared even more. Like there used to be, you'll see online stuff about like the Michigan Stars and, sometimes people get fired up over that in like corners of the internet. But like the cheering doesn't lie, man. Like the international is a whole nother vibe. I'd rather see them than the Stars any day.
And it stings just because, again, I love the Cup, but like when you get to this point, you're in the second division in U.S. soccer, like it's less about like, it's still about ball for sure, but it's less about like the feelings around ball, and it's more about the monetary value around ball. But like the common Detroit sports fan is like, let me see Columbus Crew, let me see Pumas, let me see, probably not, but let me see Wrexham, let me see.
You saw the people who showed up for when we covered Crystal Palace last year, Crystal Palace in Sevilla. I'll be honest with you, like that coverage, like knocked it out of the box compared to so many other things we did because there's so much interest in international soccer.
And it's just like, even if they don't know about soccer per se, it's like, I've heard of this team. I've heard of this team in some capacity, or like I know this is from one of the 2 top leagues in the world. So even people maybe not have known who Pumas was, but they know that like Mexican soccer has been like the tip of the spear for soccer in North America for some time. So if one of their bigger clubs is coming here, then like I definitely need to see it. And just to put in perspective, again, not to disrespect any of the other teams I mentioned, but like during warm-ups and even to a degree during parts of the game when players are warming up on the sideline, fans were coming up like, hey, do you have 5 seconds? Can I have a picture of you really quickly? That's not happening when like Louisville comes down with Wilson Harris, or Tampa Bay comes with Cal Jennings, or San Antonio comes with Mitch Tainter, who are all great, amazing players. But you're not getting fans being like, I know you're about to go in the game real quick, but can I get a quick video for my daughter? Like that's insane star power to have. And again, Pumas brought a lot of their starters, but they also brought some youth players. And it wasn't like the starters being asked. It was like kids wearing number 227 being like, can you get an autograph from me real quick?
By the way, I love the 3-number jerseys in Mexican soccer.
Yeah, I meant to mention that before if you were at the game and didn't understand. The Mexican youth soccer and such is different here, whereas a lot of American teams, they recycle numbers. So if someone has number 9 on the senior team and then on one of the youth teams wants number 9, it's fine. And if the kids want number 9, it's fine. But like in Mexico, the way numbers work is in the entire organization, senior team, U21, U18, U14, whatever. When one number is chosen, that number is gone. So if you want a number, you want number 21, you better hope 3 teams above you don't have number 21, or else number 21 is gone. So as a result, you'll see people come from the youth team and it's like coming in number, let me try to get my Spanish right. Numero 89. And it's like, why is he 189? It's like, because he probably wanted number 9 or number 11, and they're both gone. So he's like, let me just put these together. So you'll see people up to like number 300 something. Like the highest number I've ever seen in an official Mexican league game in La Liga MX has been like 345. And it's like, okay. And I mean, at certain points you get past like 99. You choose what number over 100 you want. It's like, I want the numbers to add up and mean something as opposed to like, whatever.
So you mean if I played in Mexican soccer, I could be number 313?
In theory, yes, you could. You could be number 313. You could be, I don't know, 420 if you're that person. You could probably be, number 669. I would hope you wouldn't because you're an adult. But like,
Thank you again to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/Daily Detroit, as well as our sponsors of the show. Make sure to support those who support us. They're at the bottom of our website. And of course, we do reads for them. And put a pin in your calendar because we have a happy hour coming. I'm very excited about this. It is going to be at the Royce on July 11th. We're taking over the second floor. It's going to be a great time. I'll get an event up. Just want to make sure it is in your calendar. With that, I am Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharp.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.